Good afternoon. Welcome to episode 54 of UncommonCents. Craig Kamanis and Dean Holmes here. Welcome to everybody. A special big thank you to Bentley, who took my place 2 weeks ago for episode number 53. If you haven't seen that, please jump in and have a listen as well. Bentley shares some of the secrets of success of the UncommonCents podcast as well as the Wealth Network. So it's a very good listen and thank you. And that was my wife's birthday that we celebrated 2 weeks ago while I wasn't at work. So we'll dive straight in, Craig. So today we're talking about starting new businesses and specifically, obviously, starting new financial planning businesses. I've seen a few posts in the last couple of weeks of advisors getting ready and actually jumping out and starting their own business, something that I'm really passionate about and help advisors do. And I've seen a few do it of late. And so I thought we could have a great conversation today about the things that we both think of when we meet those advisors. You meet them from the licensee perspective and they go, hey, Craig, I'm thinking about starting my own thing. And so you've got that perspective as well as 20 years just business experience as well. And so when an advisor comes to you, Craig, what's the first story that you tell them around starting their business?
Well, let me start with something we don't normally do on this program, Dean, and that's a little cash for comment. The first thing an advisor should do if they want to start their own business is speak to this guy. He's damn good at it, and he's damn good at helping people start new businesses. So there's probably the one and only plug out of 54 episodes I'm going to give you. But that's the first thing I would do before you call anyone else. Okay, advert over. I think the first thing someone needs to understand, Dean, is normally if they're going to start their own business, chances are they've been an advisor in someone else's firm or for a larger business or a larger corporate or whatever it might be. And they've decided, this is it, I want to do it on my own. Up until this point, you've had one hat on, and that's the advisor. The very next day, you're going to have to find two more hats. One's the business owner and one's the CEO. And you're going to have to start being responsible for a range of other things. So from the CEO perspective, you're going to have to be thinking through people, even if that's the advisor that's you need to be thinking about how that person operates as a CEO and then what other people do the business need. You're going to be thinking about processes. You're going to need to be thinking about your clients and your financials. And then with your business owner hat on, it's got to turn to, well, what's the strategy that you want to set for the firm? What risk management things are you putting in place? And how are you firstly going to generate lots of revenue? And then secondly, maybe a little bit later down the track, start considering how that turns to profit.
Absolutely. And so I'm reminded of one of my classic books, the screen may not show us, but the E-Myth. I will admit for a very long time before I read it, I thought E stood for electronic and it was about the internet and things like that. But the reality is E stands for entrepreneur. And this book is probably 40 years old now. This is a revisited version. However, the story and the fables within it are really relevant for today. So if anyone, you can get it on Audible and listen to the ebook version of it. It's really easy to digest. But the message is really clear, Craig, and you've confirmed that. It's those three different roles. And the challenge is, being a great financial advisor doesn't always translate to being a great business owner because you've never been that. Being a great financial advisor doesn't always translate to be the best manager because you've never necessarily been a manager. You might have managed a CSO or an outsourced paraplanning team or something, but you've not necessarily done everything it is around management. So the first thing we both agree on is taking a listen to that ebook and thinking about how you're running the roles between you as the advisor, you as the business manager, and then as the owner as well. So when we've decided to start, Craig, you and I were talking beforehand. Marketing and new clients, believe it or not, is probably what I say is the most important thing when we get that business started. If you think about it, when you decide that you want to open up a cafe or a gym, if you don't have bums on seats or bums on treadmills or legs on treadmills, then you don't have revenue coming in the door. So let's start with that side of it and talk about clients. Like what are your top tips in relation to the marketing or flow, or some lessons in regards to that?
Yeah. So number one, just slightly different tact on the clients. Don't think that your clients are going to come from where you're currently working. And if you do think that, then you know what? Here's a rant for you, Bentley. You asked for one. Shame on you. You don't own those clients. Whoever your employer was owns those clients. And I know there's people who go, but the client should be able to choose with whoever they want to deal with and all of that type of thing. And that's perfectly fine. A client should deal with who they want to, but your marketing strategy shouldn't be the day you leave that I'm just going to go after the clients for the person I've worked for the last 10 years. Because guess what? They've been through at some stage everything you're about to go through as a business owner, and they have worked their bum off, not on the treadmill, Dean. Work their bum off to build that business, to be able to have it afford to take you in and all of that kind of thing. So it's perfectly okay for you to leave and go out on your own. And I applaud that. And in fact, I want people to do that. I love people building and starting businesses. But don't start with the strategies, I'm just going to get my clients over 12 months from where I was. That's a really unfair thing. And you know what? Once you've got a business that employs 6 people and has advisors and clients and all of that kind of thing, you wouldn't want that to happen to you either. So don't get on the karma bus.
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing that we think of when we talk about the marketing strategy, or just how many phone calls that you have to make. And so what we came across, Craig, when I do this, is that I think about building a financial model. Lo and behold, it's not X Tools Plus, but it's a spreadsheet. But essentially, we're trying to forecast what our revenue and expenses will be for that first 12 months. And what's really important with that is back solving the things that you can control. And so you might do that model and you work out that you would like ideally to take on 15 clients in the first year. Now that number could be 15 or 30. It doesn't really matter. You've got to work out what it is. However, working backwards from there is that if you need to take on 15 clients, you need to have potentially 30 to 45 phone calls with prospective clients. In order to have 45 phone calls with prospective clients, you have to have people that have contacted your firm in triplet of that again, I can't do 45 times 3. It's 130 something. People that have expressed interest in talking to you, which means you've got to then have 300 to 400 people follow your content or like it or register for a newsletter on your website, for example, which means then there's 1,000 people you have to have touched through your social media if that's the way in which you do it. And so finding the clients or signing the clients, you've probably done that before in your day job. But if you take a step back and honestly reflect, how many of the clients that I signed whilst being an employee, how many did I really truly get through my own marketing efforts from that beginning point? Sure, you might have closed the client, but you didn't put the logo on the wall. You didn't necessarily write all the processes and procedures. You didn't come up with the pricing. So there was lots of things that were done for you before you arrived. And so if we just focus on this marketing side, how are you going to get exposure to 1,000 people to give you a chance to sign 15 in the next 12 months? And I think that that's the $1 million question in getting the clients in the first 12 months.
I think, Dean, like we were chatting about before, it's really, your first actual initial piece of marketing is you. And you've got to get yourself out there so that people understand when they're coming in now, they're dealing with you. In the past, like, when I used to manage my team of advisors at the bank, some of the harsh reality we had to say to people is they're actually not walking through the front door of a branch because they know you work here. Right? They're actually coming in because it's the bank. That's where they bank. And therefore, as a result of that and a conversation with someone else, you may end up with them in front of you. So don't think that's going to be the same way when you don't work in the bank anymore.
Exactly right. And so whilst I think that one of the first questions I do like to ask is, hey, what's the name of your firm that you've decided to start, for example? Pardon me. If you just wanted to call your firm Dean Holmes is a Financial Advisor Proprietary Limited, you would do equally as well, because it doesn't matter about the name of your company on day one. It doesn't have any what we would perceive any brand value whatsoever, and clients want to work with clients want to work with humans. We know that. And so clients want to work with people they know, like, and trust. And so whilst you may like to build a brand over time, it takes time to build a brand, but you can get people to know, like, and trust you much quicker if you focus on yourself as the brand from day one. So my new business is called Dean Holmes. I'm a financial advisor. Maybe it should sarcastically say, trust me, I'm an advisor. But Dean Holmes, a financial advisor, is what we could call our business. And then over time, you may go through this exercise of rebranding and changing the name to something else as you have a bigger team. But it doesn't necessarily need to happen that way.
And I think, Dean, what that equates to, mate, is that, if you go on LinkedIn today, there's lots of really quality businesses doing lots of great content and all of that kind of thing. And as a younger business, like a startup business, you could be watching some of that stuff and go, oh, I want to be like them. I want to do that. Like, understand, number one, like, you can't benchmark yourself on day one to someone who's been running for 6 or 7 years. And so if you try and be like them on day one, you're going to fail. Also understand that perceived business, if it's coming through with that type of perception, has worked damn hard to get there.
Correct.
Right? This is the old, if you want it, earn it. Don't just go, oh, that must be easy, I'll go and do that because that person looks like they're successful. You don't know the blood, sweat, and tears that person's put in to end result of a profile build and a LinkedIn post.
Absolutely. And so it's that overnight success that took 10 years is the reality. Right. And that needs to be the commitment. And I often say it when anyone's embarking on this type of branding activity, marketing activity, as opposed to saying, I get my referrals from accountants, is that you need to commit to doing this for 12 months. I've spoken to advisors. They say, oh, I tried that Facebook thing and it didn't work. And how long did you try it for? And they're like, I did it for 6 weeks or 3 weeks and I didn't get anything out of it. And they need to commit and do it for 12 months to give them a chance to get something out of it. And I think that that's the reality of anything that is available in the social media as a marketing strategy, that it takes a lot longer to get there.
Yeah, mate. I was going to say, the one thing I can guarantee you is in the first period of time, it's going to feel like it's not working at all.
Yeah, exactly. So, Craig, let's talk about revenue and pricing. Yeah. I had this really interesting epiphany when we were just prepping, and that is around being confident in relation to your pricing and how easy it was when you're an employee to either take the easy route and not price properly, or have your prices set for you so you didn't have to think about it. So let's just analyze the two. So imagine a situation where you were pitching for a particular work of client in and around being an employee. Yep. And your boss might price that at $5,000 a year, for example, as the service. And then you decide, because you're like, oh, I'm not sure if they would pay that, I'll charge them $3,000 for that piece of advice. So it's worth $5,000, you charge them $3,000. As an employee, you do not see the impact of your one decision there. So this is a really interesting and good tip for everyone out there, is that if your employee advisors are underpricing the work, the person that is 100% impacted by that is the owner of the company. Now, maybe they're one and the same in the future, but in this story, your boss, your shareholder, is 100% responsible for the fact that you underpriced. That's a problem for the longevity of the business. But secondly, it's a problem because you're not building your muscle around selling your service for the right value. And so when you step into your own business, you're used to selling $5,000 shoes for $3,000. It's going to be very easy for you to underprice your own advice, but you're not going to build a profitable and sustainable business if you continue to undercharge. Obviously, if we look at the other side, is if you haven't really built that pricing muscle while you're an employee, then when you go into this new world of being, I'm a great financial advisor, but I don't know how to charge properly, that's the second issue. So over to you, Craig, to continue the rant on pricing.
Yeah, and it is, mate. And like, I've always said to people as well, like, so number one, you've got to plan the pricing because you need to understand what client group you're dealing with, and therefore, will they be willing? Do they perceive enough value in your offer to pay for that, right? And when I say perceive enough value in that, is will they pay you the fee you need that is generating a profit per client, right? The business must be focused on that. Every client they see must be profitable to them. And so therefore you can't then as a business owner start going, well, we'll just keep discounting it to get volume or whatever it might be. Because very, very quickly you won't be a business owner because there won't be a business left to actually run. So that planning in particular is incredibly important. But then what I'd say in terms of backing yourself in, and I say this to lots of advisors all the time, what gives you the right to make a decision about what the client will pay or not? Why are you making that decision when you're in front of a client versus actually going, no, this is what our fee is. It's 5,000, not 3, and shutting up. Because if you've given enough value, the client will engage with you and pay you for that.
Yeah, so you're saying that this happens sometimes too, is that the advisor negotiates in their head ahead of time.
100%, mate.
They're like, oh, I should be charging 5 for this, but they won't pay 5, so I'll go in at 4. And then the classic that I talk about is then they ask for a further discount off the 4, and you're like, but it was 5, but the client doesn't know that. So I don't think
as an employee, Dean, like you said, they don't see the impact of that.
Yes, that's right. And so now moving from employee to business owner, you are going to see the impact on that compound over time. You've got 100 clients in your business in the future, and you've underpriced each and every one of those by $1,000. You can do the math. That's $100,000 worth of recurring revenue, but also maybe $300,000 of business value. And it's really hard to then close the gap. Because if I was getting the value at 4 and now you tell me it's 5, well, I need to see what extra I'm going to get for the 5.
Yeah, exactly right.
So raising prices to existing clients is not impossible, but it does get difficult when you've been delivering a great service for 4. Clients don't understand why they should pay 5. Now, if you've been under-servicing and under-delivering, and then you go, pay more and you can get additional services and value, that's a completely different story. But giving them a Rolls Royce for a Toyota Tarago price and then flipping around going, oh, now you have to pay for the Rolls Royce, I can understand why clients struggle with that.
Yeah, and Dean, the extension of this is, and you touched on this at the very beginning, is you need to get your pricing set and right, and you need to work with someone to probably test that and just make sure that that's it and it is going to be profitable.
Yep. Oh, and the 40 is not your money. The 440 or the 4,400, the 6,600, 600 is not yours. It's the government. So just always remember, yes, it's it's 10%, but 10% is a lot. So I can tell you over the years, I've met a lot of advisors that give me, like when we're buying practices, we get their revenue, including GST. You can't sell nor buy GST. It's a tax. So ex-GST is the way us business owners always need to play. And so, sure, you can tell Joe consumer that it's 4,400, but in business owner world, we're only receiving $4,000. You can't do anything with the $400. So, Craig, have you ever hired a tradie and they haven't sent you an invoice?
I actually have. You end up following it up, going,
because you're a good bloke. You followed up. So why does the tradie not send you an invoice?
Well, mate, I would suspect because, during the day they're doing their day job, which is their trade. And then the invoicing part is after hours when they're tired and exhausted and, not really feeling up to it. And so they probably wait for a point in time where they are feeling up to it, which is normally when they go, oh, there's no money in the bank.
Absolutely. So, and we can learn from other industries to improve. And so the tradie one, my old man ran a bricklaying company with 50 bricklayers over the years. And so I use these random examples to highlight that it happens to everyone. And so if you have a tradie come in to do a piece of work, typically, although Xero and iPhones have made this a little bit earlier, typically they can't invoice you straight away because they've got to go home and use their computer and send the invoice and all of those kind of things. And so they were typically bad at invoicing because they are doing it at home at the end of the day. And so the way in which you collect your revenue now is really important. So the pricing is important, but then how you're collecting it, whether it's direct debits and paid up front and all of these kind of things. I still talk to advisors and they say, well, we'll charge a SOA fee, or I'll only start charging when I deliver the SOA. Do you think an architect only sends the invoice when they have delivered their final drawings to the customer?
I would hope not.
I would hope not. But yet in our industry, we've built this need for some reason to link our price to the delivery of a document, as I say, the worst document in the world. And so think about pricing differently as you go into your own business. Is that if you're an architect, you would take some money up front to do the research, to talk to the customer, to spend time. Why wouldn't we do these same activities in our financial planning business? Instead of saying, hey, when I get your FUM under management, I'm going to charge you $5,000 a year or 1%, whatever you want to do, it doesn't matter. But you don't have to link the payment of your services to something that is delivered sometimes 3, 6, 9 months into the relationship. So you've been providing a lot of value essentially for free.
Exactly. And I think, mate, as you summarize all this up, right, like you can start to feel that when I'm an employee, all this stuff was just happening. And it was magically working along. But just to finish off on your pricing piece too, Dean, I think once you've actually got it settled and you know what it is, and you strategically know that it's right for your business, and not everyone agrees with me on this point, but then I think what you can do is park that over there and make sure that's what you do. And then you have to twist your focus to activity. So when you then set yourself goals and what you're going to do and how you're going to do it, don't necessarily sit down and write, I want to write $100,000 this 6 months. Work backwards and work out what activity you have to do, as you were mentioning at the beginning of this, Dean, because this is the critical part, because all of the successful businesses that I know have activity planning in place.
Yep.
What do I have to do to get that? Not just here's a target of 100 grand. It's got to be, I've got to see this many people. It's got to be this type of person. It's got to be this. That's what you need to get your focus on as a new business owner.
Absolutely. And that goes to it actually goes to everything. It's like we have this activity around, if you want to do your marketing on LinkedIn, it's 3 posts a week. Did you do that? Because you can control that. You can't always control that client coming in on Tuesday.
That's right.
The kid's sick or whatever, or you might have 2 clients the following week. You can't control that element of it, but you can absolutely control your activity. And the other thing, I think, when you first open the doors and there's nothing to do, there's a lot of shining of the kitchen benches where nobody's actually using them. So you can spend too much time building your systems and processes or making everything perfect before you've even put customers into your model. So I have this analogy of riding the bike, building a bike whilst riding it, because that's what we need you to do when you start your own business. Is you don't have to have everything sorted out when you get started, but you have to have that commitment to put the pieces together as you go. But you have to do the marketing activity and the new business activity, talking to as many people as you can before you necessarily worry about whether you're going to use Hub24 or CFS. Like, whilst relevant, if you don't get any clients in the door, it becomes very irrelevant very quickly. So you can think about those things in your business planning, but just get started at the front end of the engine, because that's actually where where you need to get the most momentum to make progress.
100%, mate.
So the last thing I think I hinted on there, as I was thinking about sort of systems and processes and things like that. And so there's a lot of learning when you kick off your own business, Craig, in terms of the right structure to be in, the quarterly tax that you have to pay that then turns to monthly tax as you get a little bit bigger as well. And so I think that the next lesson in relation to this is just building your team around you of subject matter experts that can just help and guide you along the way. So I can rave about my bookkeeper and accountant in terms of the experience that they provide me just by asking interesting questions, which your accountant should do about how you're performing, but also help you navigate all of these things as a new business owner as well. Because once again, your employer did all this stuff behind the scenes, unpaid potentially, if it was a smaller business, to kick all these things off.
Yep. And understand, Dean, that you might have to spend a little bit of money to make the money. Don't sit back and, go completely tight-ass and I'm going to try and do all of this myself. I gave you 3 hats, not 23.
Yes, correct.
And so if there's people who are there are people who are out there who, like a bookkeeper, for example, that's not going to charge a fortune, but it's going to help keep you on track. And, I won't mention his name, but you and I both know a firm who became a startup with a smaller client base, but he was willing to invest in the appropriate things for his business, knowing that it meant cash flow was tight early, but that it was going to reap later. And I think now he's actually starting to see the reward of those early investments into the right place, where he's willing to spend a little bit, not put as much in his pocket, get the foundation right, and then go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And being a knowledge worker, our startup costs are actually relatively low, right? Just go back to my tradie, call him a plumber. If a tradie wants to start his own business, he's been an apprentice and then he's going out on his own, he pretty well has to find $100,000 to spend on truck and equipment before he can possibly earn the first dollar. Okay. Yep. When I talk to advisors about starting their own business, it costs them $100,000 over the first 12 months, maybe, to start and run their own business. But we hope they can at least generate the $100,000 throughout the year as well to make that back. But it's that thing of thinking about how you're investing in your business, and you're either investing cash to buy some tools, or you're investing your mind essentially to document some activity that needs to be done and actually go and do it.
Yep. So there, spot on, mate. I think that's the opportunity that awaits anyone sitting there going, should I start my own business? Should I start my own advice business?
Absolutely. So that's us for today, Craig. Thank you all for listening. It's been a great session. Obviously, we're both passionate about this area of the industry and encourage everyone to go and talk to plenty of people out there in terms of, there's plenty of comments and chats on LinkedIn and XY Ensemble about people taking this path. And so it's one of these things where you can talk to a lot of people and learn a little bit from everyone to give yourself the best chance of success going forward. So thanks very much, Craig Kamanis, and we'll see you next time.
See you later, everyone.